Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of year again where we review and grade NFL drafts 3 years after the fact, because after that third year, you have a really good understanding of who these players are, where they hits, where they bust, and are they going to get a contract extension, are they cut, are they traded, all that stuff happens on that third year. Um, First year is too early. Second year, you got that sophomore slump. That third year is where the end of the third year is where you see who these players truly are. And yeah, we're here, and let's get right into it. Let's get right into the first pick in the 2022 draft, and that was the Jacksonville Jaguars in Las Vegas, and they selected Trayvon Walker out of Georgia. He was a rotational guy at Georgia. Didn't get that many reps, but when he did, he played, edge, he played D-line, he played linebacker, he played everywhere. He was just this gadget guy, this guy that was big. He was a freak. Got to get him on the field. How can we get him on the field? And they just plugged and played him anywhere. And obviously, Trayvon Walker had a great and phenomenal combine, I should say. And that's what caused him to get selected first overall over Aiden Hutchinson, who beat Ohio State and is like a leader and was the best pass rusher, or is the best pass rusher out of this class. He's had double-digit sacks for the past couple of years, but with that being said, I still have him as a C-. You drafted him over Aiden Hutchinson. It's just a simple question. Who would you rather have, Aiden Hutchinson or Trayvon Walker? 90% of the people who watch football or are scouts would pick Aiden Hutchinson. Because Aiden Hutchinson's a defensive player of the year candidate, where, Walker is probably at the most a all-pro linebacker. And he's been getting better, and that's what his process is that he's going to get better every single year. But I don't know, I would sell his market right now, in my opinion. And then Aiden Hutchinson, second overall, easy pick for the Lions. They selected him. I don't know if it was real quick, but it was a no-brainer. The guy's playing in Michigan his whole life. I believe he's from Michigan as well. So it's just staying home, get the guy, and it's A+ without a doubt. Got hurt last year, but this guy's a phenomenal player. He's going to keep getting better. And like I said, he's a defensive player of the year candidate. He probably would have been up there if he didn't get hurt this year, but yeah, A+ without a doubt. Derek Stingley, this one was a surprise pick by the Texans. I expected them to go lineman, I wanted to say. Lineman or edge again. Not edge again. I don't remember. I just think picking Stingley right here was super high. I thought Stingley was going to go in the top 10. And then for him being the first corner off the board, I was very, very shocked. But Derek Stingley was my guy. So I was like, damn, they selected him like that. And obviously, they got their guy. And this is a no-brainer again, A+. This guy struggled his first year. I believe he got hurt. But after that, man, he's been a lockdown corner. And you can argue that he has also been better than Sauce Gardner as well. And then New York Jets selected Sauce Gardner right after. Again, a no-brainer, A+. What can I say? This guy's been locking down people as well. I think the last year is probably his worst year, getting, holding calls, pass interference calls. He does get a little handsy, but all in all, this guy's one of the best corners in the league. Right now, in my opinion, it is Surtain, and I've been saying that for the past couple years. And, yeah, people are finally starting to catch on with Surtain. But Surtain's the best corner, and Derek Stingley and Sauce, I think, are right there. All right, Kayvon Thibodeaux. This is the 4th overall pick. The top guys basically just got selected. Edge, I think he is the best on the board, I would want to say. If you got Icky and Evan Neal on the board, who were like the top. They were supposed to go first overall, and that was the thing with everybody this year. I was like, oh, well, if the Jaguars aren't going to take Aiden Hutchinson, that means they're going to go off the line, protect Trevor Lawrence, So, yeah, those were the top other candidates, I want to say. Hold up, let me just pull it up. Let's do this, and then boom, and then boom. So at 5, yeah. So Thibodeau was definitely the best available at this time, at that moment. You obviously have a bunch of other players. I think Hamilton was probably the other guy that was high on the board. It probably went Thibodeau, Icky, and then Neal, and then Hamilton, or Thibodeau, Hamilton, Icky, Neal, or something. It's just a mixture of that. So the Giants were gonna pick one of those players. So I can't blame them for picking Thibodeau right here. But Thibodeau obviously hasn't lived up to that 5th overall selection. He's been a solid player, but 5th overall, he hasn't lived up to it at all. So with that being said, it's a C. I do believe he has great potential still. And I think if they trade him, he probably will be really good on a different team. But then again, I don't know. I feel like he hasn't, changed to like his style. Or not style, but like involved. He hasn't gotten better every single year. I feel like he's been the same. Well, I don't know. I would have to watch legit film of him. I haven't watched any Giants game because, who the fuck would? Alright, Ike Ekwonu, selected by the Carolina Panthers. I think this was a great selection by the Panthers. Reason why is because Ike, he played left tackle in is it NC State? I want to say NC State. But if he didn't work out tackle, he moved to guard. So it's like simple like that. Because you're the Carolina Panthers, you're one of the worst teams in the league. So therefore, you have probably one of the worst offensive lines in the league. So all the positions can be filled or need to be filled. And then Icky, he could take on 2. If he fails at one, he can move into the other. And right now, I believe they actually did move him to guard his rookie year, and he struggled very, very good, or very mightily at that guard position. So they moved him back out. He had a very, very tough rookie year, I want to say. I feel like they moved him everywhere on that line. Like, I want to say they moved him to right tackle as well. But left tackle is his position. He's been pretty solid, and it's a B- for the Carolina Panthers. I believe they paid him as well, so he's staying with that franchise. And if you got that guy staying with your franchise or a high-value pick on the second-year contract, and that's a win, Evan Neal. I mean, this one's a F-, man. Evan Neal has been hurt his whole career, basically, and if you're not available to perform for that team, you basically are not, you're not available, So, it's a F- for me. Evan Neal, I did not like him coming out of college. I know a lot of scouts liked him coming out of college. I absolutely hated him coming out of college. And PFL grades has him very, very good, but I just don't believe that, And again, I haven't watched that many Giants games, but I want to say he's not that great because that offensive line, they still need to, fix, in all. The Giants, they had 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, and as you can see, or not this year's draft, in the 2022 draft, and as you can see, they have missed on both of those. So it's pretty concerning if, this GM will still have a job after missing 2 first-round picks and letting, somebody go who was one of the top, running backs in the league, who would eventually become a Super Bowl champion because of his heart and leadership that led that offense to a Super Bowl winning. I know it was the whole team, but like he was the heart of that team, and you had him, and he didn't want to pay him, and you had 2 first-round picks, and they both were misses, and yeah. All right, Atlanta Falcons, they selected Drake London. I didn't have Drake London going this high, but Drake London was a phenomenal receiver prospect coming out of this, this class. Garrett Wilson was still on the board at this time. I thought Garrett Wilson was the best receiver in this draft class, but either or, both of them are phenomenal talents. In my opinion, I would take Garrett Wilson over London, but you got your number 1 receiver. I do believe they need to work on that contract, and that contract situation is going to be tough because you have a lot of other guys on contracts. Kirk Cousins, Bates is getting paid a lot of money as well. Terrell got paid. You got your offensive linemen who got paid, and I don't think they're very that good, but they got paid. And then, so it's going to be tough for them to negotiate. And then Kyle Pitts as well. He needs to get paid as well. They probably let him walk. I would let him walk, but Yeah, Drake London, he needs a new contract, so we'll see where that goes. And by the way, in my opinion, if you lose your first round player, if you can't, come to a second year contract with your first round player, that's a F minus. This is straight up. If you trade that first round player, that's a F minus. If you franchise tag said player 3 years in a row and then you lose him in free agency, that's a F minus. And why is that a F minus? It's because you didn't get a second year contract with him. That means you didn't value him after the fact, so you just let him walk. And a franchise tag is basically imprisonment, essentially. You're just getting paid a lot of money, but there's no guarantee after the fact, and that's tough for a player to go through because there's no guarantees after this season, and anything can happen on that football field. So, if you don't get a second year contract with a first round player, that's a F minus. It's a failure for the organization, especially if it says third overall or a top 10 pick. It's a failure. If it's like a late first round pick and you took a shot on a guy that had a lot of upside or something like that, we could understand that. But if it's a top 10 or like top 5 or first overall pick, if you don't have a second year contract with that guy, and it doesn't even have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be this extraordinary contract. Obviously, if it is, that means the player is one of the best players in the league. But you need that second year contract because that's a successful pick. That means that player has a value to that team, and you need a whole team to win a Super Bowl. It doesn't come down to one person. It's not NBA where you get Luka Doncic and LeBron James on one court, and they'll do their thing and win games. You need a whole 32-man roster. My bad, I said 32, 55 or 54 or 53. 53-man roster. That's what it comes down to. It's not the 5 men on the court. It's everybody, all 11, maybe 12 for the fans. All right, Seattle Seahawks. They selected Cross. All right, Seattle Seahawks. They selected Cross out of Mississippi, I want to say. Was it Mississippi or was it Texas A&M? I forgot. Let's see what it was. Mississippi State. Everybody hated this pick at the time. I had no comment about this pick. I was like, I don't know who Cross is, but hopefully they did their job or did their work right. Because I was not, I did not evaluate linemen at the time. Like, linemen were literally at the bottom of the barrel for me. And obviously now, the past couple of years, that's been my top priority, is evaluating linemen. But Cross at the time, I had no idea who this guy was. I don't think anybody knew who he was. But it was a great pick by the Seattle Seahawks, and they proved a lot of doubters wrong. Because I believe, who did a lot of people have them taken? I forgot. Let's see who was on the board. Maybe like a Garrett Wilson or something like that. I think Kyle Hamilton probably was the favorite to go there or something like that. Jordan Davis. Like, I want to say a receiver, Kyle Hamilton, or a defensive tackle were probably the favorites to go there. But they took Cross. Cross is a first-round pick for them, obviously. And he's been playing phenomenal for them. He's literally one of the best tackles in the league, and it's a no-brainer. It's an A+. Just because it's an A+, just because nobody would have selected Cross here, And I guess you could lower that, because if nobody would have selected Cross here, that means you probably could have got him in the second round. But I believe they took a tackle again. They doubled down on tackles, and both of them have. I think Lucas has been struggling a little bit, but I think they doubled down on tackles, I want to say. But nobody would have selected Cross here, and they got their franchise tackle right there. And yeah, no one would have selected him, so that's why it's A+. I think it's a great pick by the GM right there. New York Giants. So the New York team both had 2 first-round picks in this year's draft class. And the Jets, they hit on both of them. They got Sauce, they got Garrett, and by the way, both of them both won Offensive and Rookie of the Year this year. And or is that year. And then the Giants obviously missed on both of their picks. This one's an A+. Garrett Wilson was my highest receiver out of this draft class. To get him right here is just a phenomenal pick. And he is a great prospect or player, and I don't know if I believe they're gonna get a 2nd-year contract with him because they're saying they're gonna trade Devontae Adams. So if you're trading Devontae Adams, that means Garrett Wilson's your guy, and you're gonna help him get better. And yeah, it's an A+. Garrett Wilson's just he just needs a stable quarterback. Like literally, he's been playing with Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, who is a legend, but he's at the end of his career. Who else has he played with? A bunch of other people. And the offensive line, first off, if the New York Jets want to win games, they got to fix that offensive line because whoever plays that quarterback position is not going to have a successful outing because that offensive line is just horrible. And they used a pick last year to get that Penn State guy, but like I said, that guy was going to be a guard, and obviously he is a guard, He struggled at tackle. He was getting beat. All right. Chris Olave selected by his New Orleans Saints at the what overall is this? The 11th overall pick. He's wearing number 12. He should have worn number 11. Nah, just kidding. 11 overall pick. The New Orleans Saints selected Chris Olave. Chris Olave, I liked him a lot coming out of college. Ohio State guys were at the time the best, receivers out of his class. The grade I'm gonna give it probably won't make a lot of people happy, but it's a D for me. It's not because of Chris Olave. It's just literally this franchise. This franchise just is not good. If you for me, in my opinion, if I was a player and I got drafted by the Saints, I would be pretty darn sad. Because I know they're not gonna use me in the right positions, and they're just. It's just not a functional franchise, and it doesn't get this franchise doesn't get that much talked about that much. They have made so many bad picks and used players in the wrong positions over and over again. It's just mind-boggling. And you look at Zach Bond, how Zach Bond was being played outside linebacker, and all of a sudden he plays middle linebacker like he played middle linebacker in college. And now all of a sudden Howard Roseman's a genius because, oh my God, he moved the middle linebacker back to middle linebacker. This guy's a freaking genius, man. Yeah, I think this franchise is just not great. I don't know who their GM is. I don't know. And then they got Isaiah Foskey too, who's outside linebacker, but he's like a standing outside linebacker, and now they have him playing with some hands down. So it's just like. They just continue to draft guys and misuse them, and it's just horrible to see. And Chris Olave's, we've seen his hits that he takes. It's just very unfortunate for Chris Olave. If they trade him, I believe he'll be a phenomenal receiver somewhere else. He just got to stay healthy, hopefully, if that's possible for him. And obviously, this one's the A+. Williams, fastest receiver out of this draft class, went to a great place. Just a phenomenal pick by the Lions right there. Jordan Davis, Super Bowl champ now. Howard Roseman's first pick to get this dynasty going, or maybe a dynasty going. It's an A+. This guy fills gaps, gets pressure. Yeah, just absolutely freak of nature. And the Ravens, Kyle Hamilton. And we're probably going to start going. I mean, these picks are easy, that's why. These picks are like best available guys, and they did just that. Kyle Hamilton was the top 10, maybe top 5 prospect in this draft class. Get him here. It's A+, and he had a kind of a slow year this year, but it's because they're using him as a strong safety instead of using him as like a hybrid safety that blitzes sometimes, that goes over the top. Like, he's that guy that you move around, and he is that single high guy that makes plays as well. Texans, this is Green out of Texas A&M. I think this guy's out of Texas A&M. This is their worst pick from any draft class, I believe when they lost or traded Watson, and I think they had to give up a pick or something like that to trade Watson, and they only had like a 3rd-round pick from there on, and they used that 3rd-round pick to get Mills. From there on to like where we're at now, I believe this is the worst pick that they had um, from those years. And they had some great picks from those years. Green is just the worst one. It's the F minus. He's been hurt, and that interior offensive lineman has been their weakness so far the past couple of years, and he hasn't filled it at all. Doxson, like we said earlier, if you don't get that second year contract as a player or you trade him, it's an automatic F minus. So F minus right here for the Washington Commanders. Dotson's a solid player. He's gonna be a free agent, I believe, this year. It'll be cool to see where he goes. I do believe he does have talent. I think he's just been in weird situations. I think the Eagles, or he didn't fit the Eagles, necessarily, and then Commanders as well was just, when they picked him, the first time, or when they picked him, I already knew that was not a good fit for Dotson. But let's see where he goes this year. Hopefully it'll be a good scenario for him. Chargers, they selected Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson was a very interesting prospect coming out of college, a very athletic guard. And he's just a solid guard, he's a solid guard for the Chargers. It's a B. Nothing too crazy for him, but he's a solid guard. And then Burks, did the Eagles have this pick? I think the Eagles had this pick, I want to say. So that's crazy. There's so many teams that have multiple picks in this draft class. The Jets, the Giants, the Eagles, I want to say, had this pick as well. The Saints have multiple picks as well. The Ravens have multiple picks. So 5 teams had multiple first-round picks in this draft class. And then the Eagles traded this pick to the Titans for A.J. Brown. And obviously this guy was supposed to replace A.J. Brown, and unfortunately that was not the case for the Tennessee Titans. And unfortunate for Trayvon Burks, because filling those shoes, it's just, those boots are too big, A.J. Brown was a very, very unique prospect coming out of college. Like, straight up, that guy was different, that whole draft class of receivers, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, that was just, those guys were just different coming out of college. Trayvon Burks filling that role just wasn't going to happen. I hate when teams do that, For example, the Jacksonville Jaguars traded, Jalen Ramsey, and then that draft class they drafted C.J. Henderson, thinking he would replace Ramsey. Obviously, you can't do that, You can't just trade or cut somebody and replace that guy right away. It just doesn't work like that. And Titans try to do that, and it's obviously F minus here. Burks, he's been injured, and he has bad luck and big shoes to fill. And yeah. The Saints, with their second first-round pick, they selected Trevor Pennington or Penning. I don't know. I don't know his name. He played tackle for a bit. He's playing at guard. Guard's probably his home. It took him a long time to finally figure that out. But first-round pick on this guy. I would not use that at all on Pennington or Penning. It's F minus. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they selected Kenny Pickett. In my opinion, Pickett was the only quarterback that was, worth a first-round pick. Would I have selected him in the first-round pick? No. I think this was one of the worst quarterback draft classes in a very, very long time. You could probably say that about the Trevor Lawrence one, too, as well, because that Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, someone else, Zach Wilson, that draft class. But this one was way worse than that. These guys were just, and this is a year after too. So yeah, it just I don't want to say a bad pick, but it was a need that the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted to fill. Just unfortunate, Kenny Pickett was just not that guy for them. He's a backup quarterback in the league, and maybe not even a backup quarterback, as we saw with the Eagles. He struggled a lot in a very simple offense for him. And this one's a bust in my opinion. I think Kenny Pickett is a bust. First round pick. He's borderline a backup in the NFL, in my opinion. All right, Kansas City Chiefs was the what pick is this? Was the 21st pick in the 2022 draft. They drafted Trent McDuffie, franchise corner for them, one of the best corners in the league. He struggled big time against A.J. Brown. Like, A.J. Brown beat him every single play in the Super Bowl. But that's the only time I've really seen McDuffie, struggle or being beaten, Because usually he's kind of like there, but he was getting beat, with A.J. Brown. It's the first time I've seen McDuffie struggle, but it's an A+ for the Kansas City Chiefs. And McDuffie for me was the third best corner, I want to say, out of this draft class for me. Because Sauce, Stingley, those were the guys. I think McDuffie. I think Gordon was in this class, right? I want to say. Yeah, I mean, McDuffie. That was the conversation. McDuffie or Gordon. And McDuffie was the guy for me. Walker out of Georgia. He was a middle linebacker. I liked him a lot coming out of college. I had a second-round grade for him, an early second-round grade for him. I wouldn't have selected him in the first round, but the Packers did, and I honestly was pissed that they did because I was hoping the Jaguars would select him. Was that first pick in the second round. But, the Packers. Oh, the Packers had 2 first-round picks as well. That's crazy. So 6 teams had 2 first-round picks. That is insane. 2 first-round picks, dude. 6 teams. For me, I wouldn't have selected Walker as the first-round pick. Walker's a solid middle linebacker, so I give it a B. He's not too crazy, but he's not a bad player. Elam, there's not really much to say about Elam. He's just not a good corner in the league. He's just not. Yeah. All right, Tyler Smith. Now, this one's a very interesting one because this grade's going to make a lot of people pissed off. And, I'm happy for that. Or it is what it is because it's the truth, Tyler Smith is from Tesla, or whatever you want to call that school. He's a left tackle. The Dallas Cowboys drafted him to be a left tackle. He couldn't play left tackle. He moved to guard. He's a guard, and he's a great guard, but he's not a left tackle. This is the first round pick, and there's someone on the board who was the best interior lineman in the class still, and he chose to pick a tackle who everybody knew couldn't play tackle. So it just was a big flop for the Cowboys, So it's an F for me, not because Tyler Smith is necessarily a bad player, because he's okay, He's a guard. He's not a tackle. He's a guard. But you selected a guy who you wanted to play tackle, and now he's a guard, over a guy who could have been your franchise center. And obviously the Ravens, I believe, traded up for Linderbaum, I want to say. And it was the right move. Linderbaum's a franchise center, and they got their guy. And this one's an A+, You saw that the Cowboys passed on the guy they should have drafted. You made your move, and you got your guy. A+, without a doubt. Or the Jets. The Jets had 3 first-round picks. My bad. Holy crap. They had 3 first-round picks. They got Johnson. Was this one? Johnson's a solid player. Not too crazy. He's probably better than Thibodeau, I want to say, at this point in his career, which is pretty crazy to say. Johnson played at Georgia for a bit and then transferred to Florida State. He was a solid prospect. I want to say they compared him to Burns. I don't really remember, but it's a B. He's a solid player. And then the Jaguars traded up again, or traded into the first round to get Lloyd. And this grade's gonna surprise people as well because, well, not really. Lloyd has his problems, but I believe he's just in a bad franchise again, and they don't use him properly. Well, I guess last year they kind of tried to use them properly, or how I thought they would use them. So the Jaguars, they traded up into the first round to get Lloyd. They got Walker with the first round pick. So you would think that Walker would be moving inside and then moving outside, moving in between defensive line and outside linebacker, and moving Lloyd from middle linebacker to linebacker, or middle linebacker to outside linebacker. So you could be mismatching, positions depending on certain downs, having that creative defense out there. But unfortunately, that never, transpired, where we saw Trayvon Walker play interior line and we saw Lloyd play outside, and both of them playing at the same time at that position, because we've seen Walker play a couple of snaps at the, interior D line or like inside, but not even that much from him, and he, in my opinion, probably will play phenomenal in that inside D line for passing downs, because he's long and he's powerful. Those are his traits, He's very long and he's very powerful, and that's what you need inside. And Lloyd, I believe he struggled outside, I want to say, in the professional league, but I would have liked to see more from that. So it's a D right here for this pick, because trading up for Lloyd, he's been hurt quite often. But again, this is a guy that I believe if you trade him to like the Eagles, he will be a phenomenal player, and it'll be a very, like a Hiram Roseman did it again type moment, Wyatt, just do this real quick. Wyatt, I gotta see. I believe you could have got him like in the third or second round, or like just later, just not in the first round, because he was going through like domestic just allegations, He had a terrible rookie year. He probably had those stuff, lingering in the back of his head. He wasn't focusing on football, probably. But his second and third year, he's been playing pretty solid, and he is a starter for the Packers. So I gotta see, because he is, a player for them. But I just think you could get him in a later round, But then again, the Chiefs do like, women abusers, so maybe the Chiefs would have selected him. The Patriots right here, it's a F-. Cole Strange was a very strange pick. Bill Belichick did, weird things. He's kind of like a president at the end of, his lifespan. He's losing his mind. So Cole Strange was just a bad pick. This guy probably would have been in there in the 5th round or something. The Chiefs selected George Karlaftis. George Karlaftis was a very interesting prospect coming out of college. From Purdue. He was from Greece. He played water polo and all that stuff. All that was like how athletic he is, and it was a great pick by the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the A. A lot of effective rushers in this draft class. Just unfortunately, the Jaguars probably didn't get the one that is the most effective out of all of them. Bengals selected Dexter Hill. I want to say his name is Hill, Michigan. A Michigan guy. A lot of people liked him. I didn't. He's been injured, and he's part of one of the worst defensive unit in all of football. So I give him a C-. So, yeah. And then Sinir, I don't know. Lewis Sin, out of where is he from? Haiti. Out of Haiti. I liked him out of college. I liked how he played with violence, and I wanted to see that in the NFL, and unfortunately, that never happened. But for him to be selected in the first round, very, very shocking, and probably the most shocking pick out of all of these was this one right here. Yeah, it's an F-. I don't even know if he's still on the team, to be honest. I would say he is, but I don't know. And then these are other selections that were phenomenal. Walker, Hall, Breece Hall, Seattle, and the Jets. So I think the Jets literally won this draft class right here, but unfortunately it's the only draft class that they have hit on. So one draft class can't win you, I was gonna say Super Bowl, but yeah, like get you into the playoffs. You know, you gotta get into the playoffs to win the Super Bowl first. You know, so yeah, he gonna hit on every pick. Kirby Joseph, one of my guys out of this draft class, uh, leads the league in interceptions, and like he just plays the ball really well, and that's coming out of college. You saw that out of Illinois, I want to say. Played with Sidney Brown, Witherspoon, all three of those guys. Newton, I believe, was there as well. So yeah. And then Secure got his contract done. It's a great pick by the Bills, the Swiss Army knife. I saw him late in the prospect and decided to make him part of my guys. And then Isaiah Likely. This is a guy that was very high in the drafting process. A lot of people liked him, and he still somehow made it in like the 6th round, I want to say. The Ravens got an absolute steal with this pick. He's probably gonna take Andrew's spot after this year, but yeah, a great pick by the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens and Jets probably had the best draft class out of this year right here. And then Brock Purdy. This is the best selection out of the whole draft class. He beat out Trey Lance. He beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. Played phenomenal in those last couple games that year. Damn near could have made a case to be Offensive Rookie of the Year with the limited amount of games he played. Took the team to a championship game, to a Super Bowl. And unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, he probably is going to get paid a lot of money. And for his scenario, he definitely does deserve it. And he definitely does need it because he's the last pick of the draft. So that means he got paid literally, basically, I don't want to say nothing because money is money. Especially for something you love or playing a game you love. For his scenario, he definitely needs to take that money because that money will never come again. But yeah, Brock Purdy, you say what you want about him, be negative, be positive. I do believe that Eagles game did mess him up, and the Niners rushing him did hurt him, developing. But Brock Purdy has done incredible things, something that we probably will never see again. Or maybe we will, but like years and years and years, decades from now, where the last player in the drafts makes such an impact that he did, You could say that he's part of the system or the team is really good, but he is the last pick of a draft, and he did so much for the team, So Brock Purdy is the best pick of the 2022 drafts. And this class was pretty good, but all in all, I think this draft really just shows, I don't want to say shitty, but I just did. But how many bad GMs are out there, And how the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer because the GM output from those other teams are just not good. They're not good. It's horrible. Where the GMs and the great teams, they make the great decisions, and there's a reason why they're winning, If you look at the Giants, man, they had two first-round picks, and they missed, and that GM is still in office, And then you look at the Jaguars, they passed up on a Defensive Player of the Year for a developed guy. He's no longer in office. And then you look at the New Orleans Saints, they had 2 first-round picks as well. Both misses. I mean, Chris Olave is good, but he didn't move anything for them, and he's hurt all the time, and it's not his fault. The team sucks. And then who else? The Packers had 2 first-round picks. Hits, but those guys are like second-round picks, so they use first-round picks for second-round picks essentially. And then the Cowboys, you pass up on a franchise guy for a guy you wanted to play tackle, but he couldn't play tackle, so you had to move him guard, And then, who else? The Giants, they missed on for 2 first-round picks. I think I said that already. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, the Vikings made that selection, but that's the last pick. it's just a classic rich get rich and the poor get poor. Rich get rich and the poor get poor. Yeah, that's really it. That's gonna do it for us today. It's a longer video. I mean, these type of videos are gonna be long because it's 32 picks, and yeah, 32 picks, 32 different outcomes. So I hope you did. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be coming out with my mock draft hopefully this week. But thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you guys then.